Now, it's the drama It's a Sin, which centres around a group of friends living in London during the height of the AIDS epidemic in the 1980s. It has received rave reviews and broken viewer records.
But the series, written by award-winning writer Russell T Davies, has also got people talking about the need for better HIV awareness. And Dr Ranj joins us now in the studio, and this is a campaign that he's been involved in for many years. We have heard from the Terence Higgins Trust that reports that they tests are up fourfold.
Yeah.
But this is a series that's essentially stopped history from being forgotten.
Yeah, and it's an important lesson, I think. A lot of people, particularly young people right now, forget what things were like in the 80s and in the 90s. You don't realise it's
not that
actually
long
relatively
ago.
recent. There was so much stigma, so much prejudice. People used to think that HIV and AIDS was a gay-related disease and that was it. And actually, we know it can affect anybody. It affects heterosexual people, it affects women, it affects children worldwide, millions of people. There are 100,000 people in the UK living with HIV right now. Over 6,000 of them estimated don't even know, which is why getting tested and knowing your status is so important.
And so what you just said there is the difference between the story that we watch in the series to life now, which is people are living with HIV.
Yeah, this is it. So one of the biggest advances in medicine, I think, worldwide, has been advances in HIV-related care. So if you get tested and know your status, if you catch it early enough, and if you take effective treatment and suppress your viral levels, not only can you live a normal life, but you cannot pass it on to partners. So, and that's where the U equals U campaign comes from.
Incredible, isn't it?
Add to that if you take PrEP, which is pre-exposure prophylaxis, if you're at higher risk, for instance, of getting HIV, you can reduce your chance of even catching HIV. Those measures all put together mean that we can actually stop HIV in its tracks in this country. We've seen a dramatic decline in HIV diagnoses among men who have sex with men. Now, if we, I think, roll that testing and the treatment out to everybody else, we can stop HIV by 2030, and that's what the aim is.
Wow.
And so how easy, you've got the test there, haven't you? How easy is that?
It's so simple. There are lots of different tests available online. You can go to freetesting.hiv to find out what's available in your area and order a home testing kit. There's kits like this, which are all-in-ones. There are kits like this, which are available from Dean Street in London. This tests everything from gonorrhea, chlamydia, syphilis, and HIV, and you send that one away. But this one gives you a result on the spot. And I'm going to show you just how easy it is. It's a lovely little cartridge. It comes basically as an all-in-one. Comes with a set of instructions. You just take the green bit off. Here's a trick. A lot of people struggle with getting enough blood out. The important thing to do is warm your hand up. So clean your hands in warm water, milk the finger. We're talking about milking cows earlier, weren't we? Milk your finger, so get it nice and juicy, basically. Then you jab the end, like that, easy. And then gradually give it a squeeze. And whilst it's doing that...
How much do you need? Just a drop?
Literally just need a droplet, so I'll show you. Just give that a bit more of a squeeze. It doesn't take long at all, actually. There you go. Nice little juicy droplet there. You catch it in this cartridge using that little capillary just there. I'm just going to tilt it down just to make it quicker.
Is that like a little straw almost?
It's like a little straw. Tip that over. I'll mop that up. 4 drops of this reagent into the cartridge there. 3, 4. And now let's leave that for about 30 seconds to a few minutes.
Right.
And we should have a result.
That's
so
incredible.
If that now comes back with a positive result,
yes,
then what is your next step?
Then you have to go and get formally tested. Obviously, these are pretty accurate, these tests, but they can be slightly, you know, there's a degree of inaccuracy in this, so you have to get it confirmed. But if you ever get a positive test or an inconclusive test, you should really go and get tested formally.
If that comes back as a positive test, then I'm assuming that most people, their hearts would drop through the floor.
They would. And the thing is, that's where charities like the Terence Higgins Trust are there. They're there to help you out, give you support and tell you what a positive test means. A positive result does not mean what it used to mean anymore. HIV used to be a death sentence. It's not anymore for anybody, and there's no reason it should be. There shouldn't be any stigma. But you can get a huge amount of support. You get your confirmatory test done. If you do need to go on treatment, get on treatment early, suppress your viral levels and live a normal life and protect yourself and your partners. Here you go, I've already got a result.
Oh, yeah.
That's how quick it was. So it's really faint. I don't know if you can see it just there, but there's a T and a C. A line on the C means it's negative. A line on the T means it's inconclusive, and 2 lines means it's positive. So there you go. I did one earlier, but it confirms that mine is negative.
OK, good. And so, I mean, you know, the series, it's a springboard for education.
Yes.
It's really, really important. So I think while we're discussing this, it's good to start with the basics because
Absolutely.
there's a lot of questions around this. And one of the most simple questions is, what's the difference between HIV and AIDS?
So HIV is the virus that is transmitted through contact with infectious fluids, blood, semen, vaginal fluid, anal fluid, sharing needles, etc. AIDS is the condition that results from HIV. So you catch HIV, most people get a flu-like illness within a few weeks to a couple of months. That's what we call seroconversion. That's when your body is starting to make antibodies. Then the virus kind of lays low for a bit, but gradually is still attacking your immune system. So you may not have any symptoms for years. You may have got HIV and not even realised it. And then eventually when your immune system...
And that's, you can still pass it on at that.
Exactly, you can still pass it on. By then, your immune system will have been constantly attacked, and eventually, if it isn't treated, if it isn't stopped, it progresses to AIDS, and that's when you start getting infections you would not normally get.
Right.
Watching the series was shocking at how people were treated, shut away. They were totally, completely isolated. And then it makes you think about the images that you saw of the time, and one of them being in 1987, Princess Diana visited AIDS patients at a hospital in London. There's a photograph showing her shaking a patient's hand without wearing gloves.
Yeah.
And it challenged the once common but incorrect belief that HIV or AIDS could be transmitted by touch. There are so many incorrect myths that still perpetuate even now.
HIV cannot be transmitted through hugging, cannot be transmitted through kissing, cannot be transmitted through sharing cutlery, through sharing towels, clothes, you know, sharing toothbrushes. Why you would want to share a toothbrush is beyond me anyway. I probably wouldn't do that. But it's not that easily transmitted, and it doesn't survive for very long outside the body. The main mode of transmission is through unprotected sex or through sharing needles, for example, intravenous drug users. And that's where we need to be really, really careful.
And also, it's just sort of looking after your own sexual health, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, so one of those kits like there that tests for everything.
That's one does.
Like, HIV is just one part of this spectrum. There could be many, many different things. So how often should you be... I mean, if you have an active sex life and you're not necessarily with one partner, how often should you be testing yourself? Well,
ideally, you should be testing yourself every time you get a new partner, but that can be tricky. And I would say, really, every 6 months is probably sensible. The thing about self-testing is that people always worry about HIV, but there are, as you said, other conditions that are sexually transmitted. This one tests for syphilis, gonorrhea and chlamydia as well. And the beauty of this is you can do this all at home, you send it off and you get a result in a few days by text or by email.
However, don't be embarrassed about it. Go to see your GP, go to a clinic. Like,
absolutely.
It's great to do it at home because I think that takes the fear away. But for someone like you, if you have somebody that comes in to discuss this, there is no embarrassment, nothing to worry about.
We've seen and heard it all. There is absolutely zero judgment. But the thing to remember is these home testing kits are for people who don't have symptoms. So if you're asymptomatic and you just want to do a check, then get a home testing kit. If you've got symptoms, you really should be going into clinic and getting a proper assessment.
Well, doctors always say prevention is better than cure. So you mentioned the PrEP earlier on.
Yes.
Is that how do you get hold of that?
So PrEP is now available for free on the NHS, and we know that PrEP essentially is anti-HIV medication that you take in advance of having sex. So in advance of having unprotected sex, and it minimises your chances of picking up the virus. Couple that with testing, couple that with effective treatment, that is the way that we can stop HIV in its tracks. And actually, right now, we're in a lockdown. We shouldn't really be hooking up with loads of people. So now is the opportunity to get yourself tested, find out your status, not just for HIV, but for all of the other sexually transmitted infections. Get treatment if you need to. And then when lockdown is lifted, which it should be hopefully very soon as the way things are going, then you can be confident that you are as safe as you possibly can be.
OK.